Want to know the exact moment your life splits into before and after? For me, it was knocking on a car window and watching my husband's soul literally leave his body through his face. Picture this: your husband of 11 years, sitting in his Audi with his 26-year-old secretary, apartment shopping with nearly $312,000 of your money that he stole while you were busy being the perfect wife and mother. The look on his face when I knocked on that window? Hold on just a moment. Drop a comment letting us know what part of the world you're watching from. And if this tale has captured your attention, hit that subscribe button now, because what I have lined up for tomorrow's episode will absolutely blow your mind. That's the kind of memory that keeps you warm at night, folks. See? Finn thought he was a criminal mastermind. 7 months of planning his escape. Secret apartment? Check. 3 girlfriends who all thought they were the one? Check. A literal laptop folder called Exit Strategy. Like he's some kind of Wall Street villain? Check, check, check. He told these women we were divorced. Told our 8-year-old daughter to lie to me. Even forged documents to steal my house. This man really woke up every morning, kissed me goodbye, and went to work building a completely fake life like he was living in some kind of suburban crime drama. But here's the plot twist he didn't see coming. I'm not just some clueless housewife. I'm a marketing director. I destroy competition for a living. And baby, I destroyed him so thoroughly in 6 weeks that he lost his business, his reputation, his money, his girlfriends, and his dignity, in that order. So buckle up. Because this is the story of how one car window knock turned into the most satisfying revenge I never knew I needed. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll understand why my ex-husband now lives in a studio apartment in the sketchy part of town while I'm planning my wedding to a man who actually knows my middle name. Let's start with that Thursday afternoon when everything went boom, so there I was, driving down South Congress Avenue to pick up my daughters from their Montessori school when I spotted my husband's silver Audi Q7 in the parking lot of that bougie furniture store near Elizabeth Street. You know, the one that sells $4,000 velvet couches that look uncomfortable as hell. This was a place Finn Maxwell had absolutely no business being at 2:47 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon, especially since he'd told me that morning over his overpriced oat milk latte that he had a crucial investor meeting downtown that would run until at least 5 o'clock. He'd been very specific about it. Said it was with the Dubai investors for his latest commercial real estate development, the one he'd been obsessing over for months. Funny. Thing about intuition. Your gut does this. Weird thing where it knows something's catastrophically wrong before your brain catches up to process the actual evidence. I noticed the passenger seat wasn't empty. Someone was sitting there leaning toward him in that way that's just a bit too familiar, a bit too comfortable. The way the harsh Texas afternoon sunlight hit the windshield at that particular angle, I could see papers spread across the dashboard. Important-looking papers. The kind you don't casually look at in a furniture store parking lot. I pulled my white Range Rover into the spot directly behind him, effectively boxing his Audi in, and sat there for approximately 30 seconds, having what I can only describe as a full-body internal crisis. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. My heart was doing that thing where it feels like it's trying to escape through your rib cage. But then something clicked. I'm Harriet Maxwell, 33 years old, marketing director for Lone Star Hospitality Group, where I manage campaigns for 15 upscale properties across Texas. I'm the mother of 2 absolutely incredible daughters, Eloise, who's 8 and way too smart for her own good, and Julia, who's 5 and believes she's a mermaid who temporarily lives on land. And apparently I'm also a complete idiot, who'd been believing my husband's working, late excuses for the better part of 7 months. We live in a renovated 1920s bungalow in Travis. Heights that we spent 3 years and $200,000 fixing up together. Well, I picked all the finishes and managed the contractors while Finn worked. Austin in September is brutal, still hitting the high 90s. That oppressive heat that makes you question why anyone lives in Texas. But the breakfast tacos are incredible and the music scene makes up for the temperature. It was supposed to be my favorite time of year. Instead, it became the day I learned my entire marriage was performance art. I got out of my car, walked right up to that Audi's passenger side window, where I could now clearly see a woman with perfectly highlighted blonde hair, one of those expensive blazers from Nordstrom, and the kind of makeup that definitely took 45 minutes but was meant to look effortless. I knocked on the window. Not aggressive, not tentative, just 3 firm knocks. The woman looked up first, confused. Then Finn's head whipped around and oh my God, his face. His face went through what I can only describe as 5 distinct phases in about 2 seconds. Confusion, recognition, absolute terror, rapid calculation, and finally settling somewhere between a deer in headlights and a man actively having a cardiac event. He was pale. Like actually pale, which is impressive for someone who golfs twice a week and maintains what he calls his healthy glow. The woman rolled down the window, looking between me and Finn with this perfectly polished expression of mild annoyance, like I was interrupting something important. "Can I help you?" she asked. Not hostile exactly, just that particular tone of someone who genuinely doesn't understand why a stranger is interrupting their moment. I smiled. It probably looked unhinged. "I'm Harriet, Finn's wife of 11 years, mother of his 2 daughters. And you must be the reason he's been working late every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 7 months. 7 months. The number came out of my mouth before my brain had fully calculated it. But yeah, it was accurate. That's when everything had shifted. When he stopped making it to Eloise's soccer games. When he stopped asking about my day at work. When he started using that expensive Tom Ford cologne I'd never seen before. The kind that definitely wasn't his usual drugstore body spray. The woman, I'd learn her name was Claudine. Because of course it was something elegant that sounded like it belonged in a French film, went absolutely white. And I mean white. She looked like someone who just got their audit letter from the IRS. "Wife?" she said, and her voice cracked on the word. "He said he told me you 2 got divorced 2 years ago. That it was amicable. That you'd both moved on." Oh, this was good. This was really, really good. I actually laughed. It came out slightly unhinged, but honestly, who cared at this point? Divorced? That's interesting. Is that why he's still living in our house? Still sleeping in our bed? Still taking our daughters to school every morning when I have early client presentations? Finn tried to speak. His mouth opened and closed like a fish that had been yanked out of Lady Bird Lake and was desperately trying to figure out how to breathe air. No words came out. Probably because there were literally no words in the English language that could fix this spectacular dumpster fire he'd created. I looked at the papers spread across the dashboard. They were apartment listings. Fancy high-rise condos in the 2nd Street district, the kind with infinity pools and doormen and monthly HOA fees that cost more than most people's mortgages. "Are you 2 apartment shopping?" I asked, my voice frighteningly calm. "That's so sweet. Planning your future together using marital funds, I assume." Claudine grabbed her Kate Spade purse. I noticed everything in moments like these, every single detail burned into my memory, and stared at Finn with pure, undiluted disgust. "You told me your divorce freed you to finally be with someone who understood you. You said your ex-wife was cold and career-obsessed and that you'd grown apart years ago." Her voice was shaking now. "I broke up with someone decent for you. Someone who actually wanted to marry me. My boyfriend of 3 years, Connor. I told him I'd met someone serious, someone ready for the next chapter." She opened the car door, forcing me to step back. "You're still married. Actively married. Living with your wife and kids?" Claudine looked at me, and for a second I saw something like genuine remorse flicker across her face. Then she walked away, heels clicking on the hot pavement, leaving Finn sitting in his Audi with his mouth still hanging open and his carefully constructed lies detonating around him. I should have walked away right then. Should have left him sitting there in that parking lot with his apartment listings and his shattered double life, but I didn't. I opened the passenger door and slid into the seat Claudine had just vacated. It was still warm, which was somehow the most offensive part of this entire situation. 11 years, I said quietly. Too quietly. The kind of quiet that comes right before a Category 5 hurricane. 2 kids. A mortgage. Joint tax returns. Family vacations to South Padre Island every summer. And you told her we got divorced 2 years ago. Creating and bringing this narrative to life required countless hours of dedicated work. So if you're enjoying shocking real-life stories, subscribe now. Your support truly makes all the difference. Now, let's continue with our story. Finn finally found his voice. Harriet, I can explain. Can you explain why our joint savings account is missing $40,000? Because I checked it last week. His face did something interesting. A micro-expression of pure panic. Can you explain the apartment listings? Or should I guess you're planning to move there with her? With my money? I was just looking at investment properties. Don't. I held up my hand. Don't insult my intelligence more than you already have. I run marketing campaigns for a living, Finn. I know how to research. I know how to investigate. And I'm about to know everything about what you've been doing. I got out of his car, leaving him sitting there in the September heat, and walked back to my Range Rover. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Had to pick up Eloise and Julia. Had to smile and ask about their day and pretend everything was fine while my entire world had just tilted sideways. But here's the thing that Finn didn't know yet. The thing he was about to learn the hard way. I don't react. I strategize. I plan. I execute. And I was about to execute the most devastating campaign of my entire career. What I discovered over the next 72 hours made that parking lot confrontation look like a minor disagreement about whose turn it was to take out the trash. Started that Thursday night by doing what any rational woman in my position would do. I smiled through dinner like my soul wasn't actively disintegrating. Made the girls' favorite chicken tacos. Listened to Eloise explain the entire plot of the book she was reading, something about dragons and friendship, while Julia insisted on wearing her mermaid costume to the dinner table for the third night in a row. Finn came home at his usual time, around 6:30. He walked in acting like nothing had happened, like I hadn't just caught him apartment hunting with his mistress 4 hours earlier. The audacity was almost impressive. How was your day? He asked, kissing my cheek like we were in some kind of 1950s sitcom. Productive, I said, serving him a taco. Really productive. He kept glancing at me throughout dinner, waiting for the explosion. I could see it in his eyes. The fear, the calculation, the desperate hope that maybe I'd just let it go. That maybe I'd be the cool wife who pretended not to notice. I didn't say a word about Claudine. Didn't mention the apartment listings. Just asked him about his investor meeting and watched him lie directly to my face about meetings that never happened. Dubai investors who probably didn't exist. And deals that were pure fiction after tucking the girls into bed, reading The Paper Bag Princess to Julia while silently dying inside. I walked into our bedroom where Finn was pretending to review some property development plans on his iPad. So, I said conversationally, sitting on the edge of our bed, how long were you planning to keep the apartment in the 2nd Street district before you officially left us? He dropped the iPad. Actually dropped it. I heard the screen crack against our refinished hardwood floor. The same floor we'd spent an entire weekend staining together 3 years ago. Harriet. Let me explain. I called the bank, I interrupted. Our joint savings had $87,000 in it 6 months ago. It has $47,000 now. That's $40,000 missing. Want to tell me where it went? His face went through that calculation thing again. I could literally see him trying to figure out which lie might still work. Business investments. The 2nd Street property development needed. Try again. I logged into your business account. Different bank, remember? The one you thought I didn't have access to? Your assistant Erica accidentally sent me the login information last year when she meant to send it to you. This was a lie. I didn't have his business account access, but his face told me everything I needed to know. The money wasn't in any business account. Where is it, Finn? Silence. So I pulled out my phone and showed him the screenshots. Not from his business account, from something much better. Screenshots that a woman named Erica Sheldon had sent me 3 months ago. Erica, the UX designer from his commercial real estate firm, the one I'd ignored because I'd been in complete denial. Your ex-girlfriend was very thorough, I said, scrolling through messages. She documented everything, including the part where you told her I was, and I quote, basically just a roommate at this point, and that our marriage had been dead for years. The messages were brutal. Finn telling Erica that he was trapped in a loveless marriage, that I was cold and ambitious and cared more about my career than our family, that he was planning to leave once he had his finances in order. Dead for years, I repeated. Interesting, considering we'd had sex 4 days before Erica sent me these messages. Considering I threw you a surprise birthday party 6 weeks before that, invited your entire office, made your favorite German chocolate cake from scratch, bought you that Omega watch you'd been wanting. I never meant... You involved Eloise. My voice came out flat. Cold. The kind of cold that comes from those rare Austin ice storms in February that shut down the entire city. What? 3 weeks ago. Eloise saw you with Claudine at the Domain. She was there with her friend Sophie's mom for a birthday shopping trip. She asked you about it. I watched the color drain from his face. She came home and asked me why Daddy was holding hands with a blonde lady at Nordstrom. I told her she must have been confused that Daddy wouldn't do that. And you know what she said? Finn looked like he might be sick. She said, Daddy told me it was our special secret, that the lady was just a work friend and you wouldn't understand. My 8-year-old daughter. He'd manipulated my 8-year-old daughter into keeping his affair secret. Had looked her in her innocent face and made her complicit in his betrayal. You made our child lie to me. I didn't want to confuse her. You didn't want to confuse her. She's been having nightmares for 3 weeks, Finn, waking up crying. Her teacher called me yesterday saying she's been distracted in class. I thought she was being bullied. Spent an hour on the phone with her counselor trying to figure out what was wrong. I stood up. It was you. You're what's wrong. You gave our daughter anxiety because you needed her to keep your affair secret. That's when I stopped being sad and started being strategic. I want you out. Tonight. Harriet, we need to talk about this. Out. Go to your fancy apartment that you've apparently already been paying for. The one in the 2nd Street District, Unit 847, $3,200 a month. Yeah, I found the lease agreement. You used our joint account for the security deposit. Did you think I wouldn't notice a $9,600 charge labeled business consulting? His face confirmed everything. I'll have Eloise and Julia this weekend like normal, he tried. No, you won't. You'll have supervised visits until we figure out custody arrangements. I'm not leaving our daughters alone with someone who teaches them that lying to their mother is acceptable. You can't do that. Watch me. I'm calling my lawyer first thing tomorrow morning. And Finn? Don't touch our joint accounts. Don't move any more money. Don't do anything except pack a bag and leave. Because if you do, I promise you, what I'm about to do legally will make this conversation look like a friendly chat. He left, actually packed a bag and walked out at 9:47 p.m. on a Thursday night. I sat in our living room, in the house we'd renovated together, and started making a list. Item 1. Find the most ruthless divorce attorney in Austin. Item 2. Document everything. Item 3. Figure out exactly how much money he'd stolen and where it went. Item 4. Protect my daughters. Item 5. Destroy him. Not out of spite. Out of necessity. Because men like Finn don't stop until someone makes them stop. And I was about to make him stop in the most comprehensive, legally devastating way possible. I opened my laptop and started researching divorce attorneys. By midnight, I had a name. Jamie Winters. Former prosecutor, current family law specialist, known for absolutely eviscerating unfaithful spouses in court. His consultation fee was $850. I booked an appointment for 9 a.m. Friday. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have. I logged into Finn's laptop. He'd left it at home in his rush to leave, using the password I'd always known, Eloise 2015. Our oldest daughter's name and birth year. What I found made that $40,000 in missing savings look like pocket change. 2 separate bank accounts I'd never seen before, both under only his name. Total balance across both, $87,000. He hadn't stolen $40,000. He'd stolen $127,000 of our marital assets over the course of 7 months. While I'd been working 60-hour weeks to help fund his business ventures, While I'd been managing our household and raising our daughters and being the dutiful wife, he'd been systematically draining our marriage dry. But that wasn't even the worst part. There was a folder on his desktop, labeled, and I am not making this up, Exit Strategy 2025. I opened it. Inside were documents that made my blood freeze. Custody arrangements where he got primary custody, asset division proposals that gave him the house, draft emails to his business partners about relocating to Seattle, research about Texas custody laws, notes about how to prove I was an absent mother because of my career. He'd been planning this for 7 months. While celebrating our 10th anniversary last September, while taking family photos at Christmas, while telling me he loved me every single morning, he'd been building a case to destroy me and take everything. I screenshot everything, uploaded it all to a secure cloud drive. Then I did what I should have done months ago. I called Erica Sheldon, the ex-girlfriend who'd sent me those screenshots. It was 1 a.m., but she answered on the second ring. Harriet? I need everything you have on Finn, every message, every receipt, every lie. And I need to know if there were others before you. There was a long pause. There was one before me, she said finally. A woman named Julia from his cycling group. They were together for 4 months, until she found out about you through his emergency contact form at the gym. Julia, he'd been sleeping with a woman named Julia, the same name as our 5-year-old daughter. I'll send you everything, Erica said. And Harriet, destroy him. I hung up and sat there in the dark, in the living room of the home I'd built, looking at the family photos on the wall. Pictures of a life that had been a complete lie. By 3 a.m., I had a complete dossier on my husband's double life. And I hadn't cried once. Crying could come later. Right now, I had work to do. Friday morning, September 20th, I dropped Eloise and Julia off at school like everything was normal. Made their lunches, braided Eloise's hair, helped Julia find her favorite mermaid backpack. Smiled at the other moms in the carpool line while internally planning the systematic destruction of my husband's life. Then I drove straight to Jamie Winters's office in the Frostbank Tower downtown. His office was exactly what I expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of Lady Bird Lake, expensive modern furniture, and walls covered with framed legal victories. Jamie himself was mid-40s, silver hair, and the kind of sharp-eyed intensity that made you understand why unfaithful spouses apparently wept during his depositions. Mrs. Maxwell, he said, gesturing to a leather chair across from his massive desk. Tell me everything. I handed him a USB drive. That's 7 months of financial records showing $127,000 in dissipated marital assets. Screenshots of my husband telling multiple women we were divorced. Evidence that he manipulated our 8-year-old daughter into keeping his affair secret. And a folder from his computer labeled Exit Strategy 2025, where he's been planning to take primary custody and our house. Jamie plugged in the USB drive. His eyebrows went up as he scrolled through the files. So here's the deal, Jamie said, typing notes on his iPad. Texas splits everything 50-50 in a divorce. Everything you made during the marriage, he gets half. Everything he made, you get half. But, and this is the good part, when someone steals marital money and manipulates kids, judges get pissed. We can argue you deserve way more than half because of what he did. He explained it all while I sat there drinking his office's fancy pour-over coffee. How Texas family courts handle infidelity. Technically, it's a no-fault state, but judges definitely consider it. How his financial fraud would play. How the parental manipulation of Eloise was actually the strongest card we had. One more thing, I said before leaving. I want documentation of everything. Every lie he told these women about being divorced. Every dollar he moved. Every time he used our daughter as his accomplice. I want it so thoroughly documented that he can't possibly spin this into some we grew apart narrative. Jamie smiled. It was the smile of someone who genuinely loved his job. I'll have my investigator start today. In the meantime, don't touch any joint accounts. Don't post anything on social media. Don't engage with him except through text or email. We want everything documented. I left his office feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Not hope exactly, but power. Meanwhile, Finn was spiraling. He'd moved into his Second Street apartment and immediately started posting Instagram stories about finding peace in solitude, with carefully staged photos of himself on his balcony with a book. The book was The Alchemist, which was hilarious because Finn hadn't read an actual book in our entire marriage. His literary consumption consisted entirely of real estate blogs and Reddit threads about cryptocurrency. His mother called me that Saturday. Barbara Maxwell, who told me at our wedding that I was exactly the grounding influence Finn needed, now wanted to have a little chat. "Finn says you two are having problems," Barbara said, her voice dripping with that particular brand of mother-in-law concern that really means she believed her son's version of events exclusively. "Barbara, did Finn mention that he's been having affairs? Plural? Or that he's stolen $127,000 from our savings? Or that he manipulated Eloise into keeping secrets?" Beautiful, uncomfortable silence on the other end of the line. "I'm sure there's been some kind of misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. Your son is a documented liar and thief. I have bank records, screenshots from his girlfriends, and security footage of him with his mistress. But sure, let's focus on how I'm not being understanding enough of his journey of self-discovery." I hung up. First time in 11 years I'd hung up on Barbara Maxwell. It felt incredible. By Monday, word had spread through our social circle. Austin's a big city pretending to be a small town. Everyone knows everyone through some chain of yoga studios, kids' schools, or weekend brunch spots. Claudine had apparently told her book club about the, psycho married guy who lied about being divorced. That book club included 3 women from the junior league who knew half of Austin's social elite. Finn's reputation was becoming roadkill in real time. His business partners at Maxwell Development Group started distancing themselves. Someone accidentally left him off the email chain for their quarterly investors meeting. His favorite bartender at Whistler's gave him the cold shoulder. Even his cycling group chat went suspiciously quiet. But here's what really destroyed him. Eloise stopped talking to him. My 8-year-old daughter, who'd spent every Saturday morning making him elaborate pancake breakfast faces, who'd been his little shadow at every open house and property showing, refused to FaceTime him when he called. When he came by the house Sunday afternoon for what was supposed to be his first visit with the girls after moving out, Eloise stayed in her room. "Eloise, honey, Daddy's here," I called up the stairs. "I don't want to see him," she said through her closed door. Finn stood in our entryway. Well, my entryway now? Looking like someone had physically struck him. "Eloise?" he called. "Can we talk?" "Why did you make me lie to Mommy?" Her voice came through the door, small and hurt. "Sophie's parents got divorced last year, and her dad didn't make her lie. You said it was our secret, but secrets aren't supposed to make you feel sick." Finn sat down on our couch, looking like someone had punched him in the soul. He'd never considered that his actions would have consequences beyond just me finding out. He'd never thought about how his manipulation would shatter his daughter's ability to trust him. "I think you should leave," I told him calmly. "Your visit doesn't mean much if your daughter won't see you." He left. And for the first time in 7 months, I felt something other than rage or heartbreak. I felt powerful. The real plot twist came on a Wednesday morning in early October, October 9th to be exact. I was at my desk at Lone Star Hospitality, working on a campaign for our new property in San Antonio, when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Hi, Harriet. This is Claudine. I know this is weird, but can we talk? I have information you need to see." My first instinct was to delete it. My second instinct was to screenshot it and send it to Jamie. My third instinct, the one I actually followed, was to respond. Houndstooth Coffee. 2 p.m. full circle, baby. Not the same parking lot where I'd caught them, but close enough to be poetic. Claudine showed up looking significantly less polished than the first time I'd seen her in that Audi. No perfect makeup, no power blazer. Just jeans, an oversized UT Austin hoodie, and the unmistakable face of someone who'd been crying recently and probably needed better concealer. She sat down across from me at a corner table, clutching a manila folder like it contained nuclear launch codes. "I'm not here to apologize," she started, then immediately backtracked. I am sorry." "God, I'm so sorry." "But that's not why I asked to meet." "Then why?" She slid the folder across the table. Her hands were shaking slightly. "Because Finn's not who either of us thought he was, and you deserve to know everything before your divorce gets ugly." I opened the folder. Inside were bank statements showing accounts I'd never seen before. Not the two I'd already discovered on his laptop, different ones. 5 additional accounts, actually. All under variations of his name or his business LLC, total amount hidden across all 7 accounts, $312,000. I looked up at Claudine. "How did you get these?" "I went through his laptop after I found out about you," she said quietly. "I know, total invasion of privacy, whatever. But I was angry. And when I get angry, I get thorough. $312,000. He hadn't just stolen $127,000 from our marriage. He'd been systematically hiding money for 7 months. While I'd been working 60-hour weeks, while I'd been using my salary to cover our mortgage and the girls' private school and our family health insurance because his startup needed capital, he'd been building a secret fortune. It gets worse," Claudine said, pulling out printed screenshots. "He has this whole folder on his computer called Exit Strategy 2025. I'm guessing you already found that one." "Yeah." "Did you see the subfolder called Seattle Relocation?" I hadn't. I'd been so focused on the custody documents and asset division proposals that I'd missed an entire subfolder. Claudine spread the printouts on the table. Emails to commercial real estate brokers in Seattle. Research about Washington State's business opportunities. Notes about property investments in Bellevue. A draft resignation letter to his business partners dated for January 2026. He was planning to move to Seattle? I asked. "With me," Claudine said, her voice breaking slightly. He'd been showing me all these beautiful photos of the Pacific Northwest, talking about starting fresh somewhere new. Said once his divorce was finalized and his business was sold, we'd move up there together. He'd already been looking at houses, Harriet. Houses with my must-haves list. I thought we were planning our future. She pulled out her phone and showed me the list. 3 bedrooms, office space, walking distance to coffee shops, good school district. Good school district, I repeated. For the kids he told you didn't exist? Claudine's face crumpled. He said he'd never wanted kids. That it was one of the things that made him incompatible with his ex-wife, you. That you'd wanted children and he'd gone along with it to make you happy, but it had killed your marriage. Eloise and Julia. My daughters. He'd told this woman they were mistakes, unwanted accidents that ruined his life. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Because he did the same thing to me that he did to you," Claudine said. "He used me, made me complicit in hurting someone else. And when I confronted him 2 days ago about the divorce that apparently never happened, you know what he said?" She pulled up a text message and showed me. "You're being too demanding. I need space to figure things out. This is moving too fast." The exact same line. Word for word, probably the same thing he'd told me 100 times during our marriage when I'd asked for basic emotional availability. "There's one more thing," Claudine said, pulling out another set of screenshots. "I found messages between him and someone named Julia from his cycling group. They've been talking since before he started seeing me. 7 months, same as you said. She's the one he was with before me." Julia, the same Julia from before. He'd been cycling through all 3 of us at the same time for 7 months. "She's still seeing him," Claudine continued. "I found her Instagram. Julia Finbar, yoga instructor. She has no idea about either of us." "He's been with all 3 of us simultaneously for 7 months?" I asked. "Looks like it. Tuesday and Thursday nights with me, weekend morning rides with Julia, and living with you the rest of the time." I stared at the messages. This wasn't just an affair. This was a systematic pattern of deception with multiple women, all while maintaining his perfect family man image. "Thank you," I said finally, looking at Claudine. "Seriously, this changes everything." She nodded and stood to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, your daughters are lucky to have you." He talked about them once when I asked about kids. Said he had parental obligations from his previous marriage. Not children, obligations. I should have seen it as the red flag it was. After she left, I sat there for 20 minutes, absorbing everything. Then I called Jamie. How fast can we file for emergency custody modification and asset freeze? If you have evidence of parental alienation attempts and significant hidden assets? Very fast. Why? I told him everything. The 7 accounts totaling $312,000. The Seattle relocation plans. The character assassination emails. The third woman he was still actively seeing. I'll have papers filed by Monday, Jamie said, and I could hear him typing furiously. And Harriet? This exit strategy folder, the hidden money, the systematic planning to relocate without telling you, that's not just shady. That shows premeditation. Calculated fraud. Texas judges really hate that. Hung up and looked at the manila folder Claudine had given. Finn had spent 7 months planning the perfect exit. I was about to spend the next few weeks making sure he regretted every single second of it. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in strategic warfare. Jamie brought in a forensic accountant named Huxley Karp, this unassuming guy in his 50s who wore cardigans and looked like he should be teaching middle school math, but had the soul of an IRS auditor on a mission from God. Huxley found everything. Turns out Finn had been playing games with taxes for years. Filing his business taxes separately to hide money. Taking his girlfriends out to fancy dinners and calling it client entertainment. $47,000 worth of steakhouses and weekend trips that I definitely never got to enjoy. Oh, and that Tiffany bracelet? Business expense, apparently. Moving money into cryptocurrency wallets. Another $28,000 in Bitcoin that he'd bought in 2023 and conveniently forgot to mention during our full financial disclosure conversations about the girls' college funds. Paying for his 2nd Street apartment through an LLC he'd created without telling me? The LLC was called Maxwell Future Holdings, which was either incredibly stupid or incredibly arrogant. Probably both. And here's my personal favorite. He'd taken out a $50,000 line of credit against our house. Our house. The one I'd found, the one I'd renovated, the one where I was raising our daughters, and used it to fund his Seattle relocation plans. Total marital funds misappropriated. Hidden or fraudulently obtained. $312,000. In Texas, that's not just infidelity. That's fraud. That's forgery. That's the kind of thing that makes family court judges very, very angry. But I wasn't done. I reached out to Erica Sheldon, the UX designer he'd dated before Claudine. She agreed to provide a sworn deposition about Finn's pattern of lying about his marital status. Gave us screenshots going back 7 months, texts where he'd said I was practically a stranger at this point, and that we were just co-parenting roommates. Then I did something that felt slightly evil, but was absolutely necessary. I joined his cycling group, not to confront anyone. I'm not that messy. But to observe. And sure enough, there she was. Julia Finbar, late 20s, yoga instructor type with the kind of athletic build that comes from actually exercising instead of just posting about it on Instagram. She was all over Finn during their water breaks. Touching his arm, laughing too loud at his mediocre jokes, giving him those eyes. When she posted an Instagram story of their Saturday morning ride with this incredible human and tagged Finn's account, I screenshotted immediately. Sent it straight to Jamie, evidence of ongoing affairs during active divorce proceedings. Chef's kiss, Jamie was practically gleeful. Most divorces are boring paperwork and custody schedules, he told me during one of our strategy sessions at his office. This is why I went to law school. I also did something I'd been avoiding. I sat down with Eloise and Julia and told them an age-appropriate version of the truth. Not the gory details, but enough. It was mid-October, and we were carving pumpkins at the kitchen table. Julia was determined to make hers look like a mermaid, which was anatomically challenging with a pumpkin, but we were trying. "Girls, I need to talk to you about Daddy," I said, helping Julia draw the design with a marker. Eloise looked up from her pumpkin, her expression guarded. She'd been quiet lately, more withdrawn. Daddy made some choices that weren't honest, I explained carefully. He wasn't truthful with our family. That's why he doesn't live here anymore. Is it because of the blonde lady at the mall? Eloise asked quietly. My heart broke a little more. That's part of it, honey. But it's more about Daddy not being truthful with any of us. And that's not okay, even for grown-ups. Julia, my 5-year-old philosopher, looked up from her mermaid pumpkin with completely serious eyes. Is Daddy in timeout? Sort of, I said, fighting back either tears or laughter. I wasn't sure which. A really, really long timeout. How long? Julia asked. We'll see. Eloise put down her carving tool. Emma's parents got divorced last year. Her dad didn't make her lie. Why did Daddy tell me it was our secret? Because Daddy made a mistake, I said. A big one. And when grown-ups make really big mistakes, there are consequences. Like how when you lie about eating cookies before dinner, you lose dessert privileges. But bigger. Way bigger, Eloise said. Way bigger. I agreed. By October 25th, I had a complete arsenal. Forensic accounting report showing $312,000 in dissipated and hidden assets. Depositions from 2 ex-girlfriends establishing a pattern. Evidence of ongoing affair with Julia during proceedings. Documentation of parental manipulation and attempted character assassination. Proof of planned relocation without custody notification. And a lawyer who was ready to absolutely demolish Finn in court. Finn's attorney, some corporate guy named Connor Finbar who specialized in business law, not family court, was already sending settlement offers. They wanted to negotiate. Wanted to keep this amicable and out of the courtroom. Jamie texted me after receiving their 3rd settlement offer in a week. They're terrified. Good. Let them sweat until the hearing. But I also focused on something I'd been neglecting during my marriage. Myself. Started taking the girls to the Texas farmers market every Saturday. Reconnected with my college roommate Sean, who I'd lost touch with during the marriage. Joined a book club that met at Book People. Hired a financial advisor to help me understand our real financial picture and plan for single-income life. And I started dating. Nothing serious, just coffee dates, walks around Lady Bird Lake, reminding myself what it felt like to have someone actually listen when I talked. There was this teacher from Julia's school, Sean. Yes, same name as my college roommate, which was initially confusing but also kind of funny, who'd been divorced 3 years earlier. He understood the chaos of single parenting and didn't run screaming when I mentioned I had 2 kids and a psycho ex. You seemed different than when I met you at parent-teacher night in August, Sean the teacher said during one of our coffee dates at Cosmic. More present, like you're actually here. That's what happens when you stop performing someone else's idea of who you should be, I told him. When Finn found out I was seeing someone, because Austin's basically a small town and someone from his cycling group saw us at the food truck park on South Lamar, he absolutely lost his mind. Started texting me about moving on too fast and confusing the children and appropriate boundaries during divorce proceedings. The irony was so thick I could have served it on toast. You're concerned about confusing them? I texted back. That's rich coming from the man who's been with 3 different women for the past 7 months and told our daughter to lie to me. But sure, John, my coffee dates are the problem. He didn't respond. What could he possibly say? As November approached, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Actual, grounded hope. Not the naive kind, but the kind that comes from knowing you've done everything right. Built an airtight case, protected your kids, created a life that doesn't need him in it to function. Finn had spent 7 months planning his exit strategy. I'd spent 6 weeks planning his complete destruction, and I was really, really good at my job. The preliminary hearing on November 18th was supposed to be routine. Just a formality where both sides present their initial positions, the judge sets some temporary orders, and everyone goes home to prepare for the actual trial. Finn's attorney, Connor, showed up looking way too confident for someone whose client was about to get legally eviscerated. He kept whispering to Finn, probably reassuring him that preliminary hearings don't really matter, that the real negotiation happens in mediation, that everything would be fine. They had absolutely no idea what was coming. Jamie stood up in his perfectly tailored navy suit and addressed Judge Patricia Winters, a woman in her early 60s with silver hair and a reputation for having zero tolerance for financial games. Your Honor, this isn't a typical dissolution case. What we have here is systematic fraud, parental manipulation, and a documented pattern of deception spanning 7 months. I'd like to submit our forensic accounting report, witness depositions, and evidence of ongoing misconduct during these proceedings. He handed the bailiff a binder that had to be 4 inches thick. Finn's face went from confident to pale in about 3 seconds. Connor's smug expression evaporated like water on Austin pavement in August. Judge Winters spent 25 minutes reviewing the documents. 25 silent, excruciating minutes where you could hear every cough, every paper shuffle, every nervous breath in that courtroom. I watched Finn squirm in his seat, watched him whisper frantically to Connor, watched the exact moment he realized that his carefully constructed exit strategy was about to collapse on top of him like a building with faulty foundation. Judge Winters finally looked up, removing her reading glasses. "Mr. Maxwell," she said, her voice carrying that particular tone of judicial displeasure that makes grown men want to cry. "It says here you've dissipated approximately $312,000 of marital assets, created multiple LLCs without your spouse's knowledge, underreported income on joint tax returns, taken out a line of credit against the marital home without consent." She paused, flipping a page. "And coerced your 8-year-old daughter into maintaining secrecy about an extramarital affair." Finn opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Connor tried to jump in. "Your Honor, my client acknowledges some financial irregularities, but—" "Some irregularities?" Judge Winters cut him off. "Counselor, your client committed fraud against his spouse, against the IRS, and against the integrity of this court by attempting to hide assets during dissolution proceedings." She looked directly at Finn. "Do you have the $312,000 available to return to the marital estate?" Silence. Beautiful, damning silence. "Mr. Maxwell, I asked you a question." "Some of it is invested," Finn mumbled. "In cryptocurrency and property? Deposits, and the market's been volatile." "So you gambled away marital funds," Judge Winters said flatly. It wasn't a question. "Here's what's happening right now," Judge Winters said. "Mrs. Maxwell keeps the house. Mr. Maxwell pays $4,500 a month in spousal support, plus child support for both girls. And we're calculating that based on what he actually makes, not the fake numbers he reported on his taxes." Connor shot to his feet. "Your Honor, that's excessive. My client's reported income. Counselor, your client underreported his income by approximately $85,000 annually. I'm calculating support based on the forensic accountant's findings of his real income." "Sit down." Connor sat. "Furthermore," Judge Winters continued, "parenting time will be supervised pending a psychological evaluation to address the documented parental manipulation. Mr. Maxwell will provide full accounting of all financial assets, including cryptocurrency holdings, offshore accounts, and LLC holdings within 10 days. Failure to comply will result in sanctions and potential contempt charges." "Your Honor," Connor tried again. "I'm not finished. This court will also be referring this matter to the Texas Comptroller's Office for review of the tax irregularities noted in the forensic report. And to the IRS. Mr. Maxwell, you are not to relocate more than 60 miles from your current residence without court approval. Any assets discovered that were not disclosed will be awarded entirely to Mrs. Maxwell." She looked at Jamie. "Anything else, Mr. Winters?" "Just one thing, Your Honor. Given Mr. Maxwell's demonstrated pattern of deception with multiple partners during the marriage, we'd like to request STD testing be required before any unsupervised contact with the minor children." My jaw almost dropped. Jamie hadn't mentioned he was going to request that. "Granted. Mr. Maxwell, you will submit to a full STD panel within 5 days and provide results to opposing counsel." Next hearing date will be January 15th for full evidentiary hearing. We're adjourned. The gavel came down. Finn looked like he'd been hit by a bus. An F-150 specifically. Very Texas. In the hallway outside the courtroom, Connor tried damage control. We can appeal the temporary orders. With what money? Finn snapped at him. You said this would be straightforward. You said she wouldn't have this kind of evidence. I'm paying you $425 an hour to lose. You told me you'd been honest about the money, Connor shot back. You didn't mention $312,000 in hidden accounts or a literal folder called Exit Strategy on your laptop. How am I supposed to defend that? I walked past them with Jamie, not saying a single word. Didn't need to. My silence was more devastating than anything I could have said. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Within 48 hours, Maxwell Development Group asked Finn to step back from his partnership role. Translation: they didn't want to be associated with someone under IRS investigation and facing fraud allegations. His salary went from $140,000 to zero. His cycling group kicked him out after Julia posted a very long, very pointed Instagram story about recognizing red flags and trusting your intuition about toxic people. She didn't name him, but she didn't have to. Everyone knew his mother Barbara called me. Actually called to apologize. I didn't know the extent of what he'd done, she said, her voice shaking. The way he treated Eloise. The money, all of it. I'm so sorry, Harriet. Can I still see my granddaughters? Of course, I told her. They're not pawns in this, unlike what your son tried to make them. I know. And Harriet? Thank you for not keeping them from me. That's more grace than I deserve. The $4,500 monthly spousal support plus child support meant Finn had to move out of his 2nd Street apartment. Couldn't afford the $3,200 monthly rent on unemployment. He ended up in a 1-bedroom in Pflugerville, 30 minutes outside Austin in Thursday afternoon traffic. His Instagram went silent. No more finding peace posts. No more philosophical quotes over sunset photos. Just radio silence. But the real karma came from an unexpected source. Maxwell Development Group's CFO, who'd been reviewing company finances after Finn's departure, discovered that Finn had been expensing personal charges to the company card for over 7 months. Hotel rooms for his affairs, dinners with girlfriends, jewelry, flowers, weekend trips to Houston and Dallas, all charged as client development and business entertainment. Total, $67,000 in fraudulent expenses. They sued him. Actually sued him. Embezzlement and fraud charges for stealing $67,000 from the company. His own former employer was taking him to court. So now Finn was being sued by his own company while going through a divorce where he owed $312,000 in dissipated assets, facing IRS investigation, and paying $6,200 a month in support on zero income. Jamie actually laughed when I told him, he's being destroyed from every angle. The court, the IRS, his former company, his reputation. It's beautiful. Like watching a controlled demolition. The supervised visitation with Eloise and Julia was painful to watch. A court-appointed supervisor named Margaret sat in my living room every other Saturday while Finn tried to act like everything was normal. But Eloise wasn't having it. Why did you lie? She asked him directly during the second visit. Margaret said this is a safe space to talk about feelings. So why did you lie to me and Mommy? Finn looked at Margaret, then at me standing in the kitchen doorway, then back at his daughter. I made mistakes, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups make really bad mistakes. But you made me lie too, Eloise interrupted. You said it was our secret. My counselor says secrets that make you feel bad aren't good secrets. Margaret was taking notes. I could literally see Finn's parenting time getting more restricted in real time. Julia, my chaos agent, was less confrontational but equally devastating. She treated him like a polite stranger. Thank you for the juice box. Can I go play with my Barbies now? By Thanksgiving, the transformation was complete. Thanksgiving painted the perfect before and after picture. Finn spent it alone in his 1-bedroom Pflugerville apartment, eating probably a hungry man frozen dinner, scrolling through his phone looking at pictures of holidays past when he still had a family. Meanwhile, Eloise, Julia, and I had dinner at Barbara's house. That's Finn's mom, my former mother-in-law, with my parents who'd driven down from Dallas. Barbara had gone all out. Proper turkey, 3 kinds of pie, the fancy china she usually reserved for Christmas. My dad carved the turkey while telling terrible jokes. My mom helped Julia make a thankful tree out of construction paper. Eloise actually smiled and laughed, something she hadn't done much of in October. Barbara pulled me aside while we were washing dishes. I know I don't deserve to say this, but thank you. For handling this with grace. For not poisoning my granddaughters against me. They need their grandmother, I said. And you're not responsible for your son's choices. No, but I enabled them for years. Made excuses. I see that now. Let's tally up what Finn lost versus what I gained, shall we? Finn's loss column, his 6-figure job at Maxwell. Development group, his reputation in Austin's commercial real estate scene. His relationship with his daughters, supervised visits only. $312,000 in assets he had to account. For his 2nd Street apartment, couldn't afford it. His mother's. Unconditional support. Barbara was firmly Team Harriet. Now his social circle, cycling group, networking contacts, everyone. His future Seattle plans, court order restricting relocation. His financial security, being sued by former company for $67,000. Paying $6,200 monthly support on 0 income, facing IRS investigation. My gain column, the house with full equity, worth approximately $650,000, 3 new major clients. At Lone Star Hospitality through referrals, relationship with Sean the teacher that was actually healthy and respectful. My daughters back in therapy and healings, friend group I'd reconnected with actual. Peace in my own home, financial security once the settlement came. Through self-respect, I didn't even know I'd lost. The house felt completely different without Finn's energy in it. I'd repainted our bedroom. His choice of sophisticated greige became my choice of actual sage green with personality. Bought plants that I didn't have to justify. Played music loudly while cooking. Let the girls have dance parties in the living room at 7 p.m. on school nights, because why not? One evening in early December, December 6th specifically, I was making hot chocolate for the girls. The real kind with actual melted chocolate and cinnamon, when I got a text from Claudine. Saw Finn at HEB. He pretended not to see me. Looked rough. How are you doing? I sent back, thriving. Thank you for the evidence. Changed everything. Good. You deserved better. Also, I'm seeing someone new. A woman, actually. Her name's Sophia. Turns out I might not be as straight as I thought. Growth, right? Growth, I agreed. The January 15th hearing was 6 weeks away. Jamie was confident we'd get everything we wanted in the final settlement. Full custody. The house. Significant asset division in my favor. Continued support payments, and enough documented evidence that Finn would never be able to spin this into a we grew apart mutually story for his next victim. But honestly, I'd already won. The hearing was just paperwork at this point. I'd won the moment I stopped being scared and started being strategic. The moment I chose documentation over emotional reactions. The moment I realized that the best revenge isn't screaming or crying or dramatic confrontations. It's living so well that your ex's terrible choices become their problem, not yours. Finn had planned his exit strategy for 7 months. Thought he was so clever with his hidden accounts and secret apartment and his roster of women who all thought they were special. I'd executed mine in 8 weeks. And mine actually worked. I ran into Claudine one Saturday at the Texas Farmers Market in December. She was with someone new, a woman with kind eyes and paint-stained overalls who was examining homemade pottery at one of the vendor stalls. Harriet. Claudine smiled genuinely. This is Sophia. She's a ceramicist. We met at a gallery opening in the East Side. Nice to meet you, I said, shaking Sophia's hand. You too. Claudine told me what happened. I'm sorry you went through that. I'm not, I said honestly. Not anymore. It freed me to build something better. After they left, Julia tugged my hand. Was that the lady from Daddy's car? One of them, yes. She looks happy now. People can be sad and then be happy again. 5-year-old wisdom, straight to the heart. Finn eventually got his supervised. Visitation lifted to unsupervised after 6 months of therapy and a custody. Evaluator's recommendation that he'd made sufficient progress. He was trying, I'll give him that. Showed up on time. Stopped making promises he couldn't keep. Actually listened when the girls talked instead of checking his phone. It wasn't perfect. But it was progress. He'd gotten a new job, too. Not the 6-figure startup dream, but a decent position as a project manager at a mid-sized construction company in Round Rock. Moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Cedar Park. Joined a therapy group for divorced dads trying to rebuild relationships with their kids. Started taking antidepressants. Deleted all his social media. Good for him, I guess. Personal growth is personal growth, even when it comes after you've burned everything to the ground. As for me, I was thriving in ways I didn't know were possible when I was married. I'd launched a side consulting business, helping smaller boutique hotels with their marketing. It was actually profitable, made an extra $40,000 in the last quarter of the year alone. Started taking the girls on weekend adventures. Drove to Fredericksburg to see the wildflowers. Spent a weekend in Port Aransas building sandcastles. Took them to that weird alpaca farm outside Dripping Springs that they absolutely loved for reasons I will never understand. Sean proposed in June at Hamilton Pool. Nothing fancy, just him, me, the girls, and one of Austin's most beautiful swimming holes. He got down on one knee on the limestone rocks while Eloise and Julia splashed in the water behind us. Eloise cried happy tears. Julia asked if she could be a flower mermaid at the wedding instead of a regular flower girl. We're getting married next April. Small ceremony at the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center. Just family and close friends. About us, not performance. Sometimes I think about that Thursday afternoon in September when I knocked on Finn's car window and watched his whole face betray him. How that single moment detonated my entire life. But here's the thing. It didn't destroy me. It freed me. Freed me from a marriage where I was invisible. From a partner who saw me as a resource to manage instead of a person to love. From the exhausting performance of pretending everything was fine when it absolutely wasn't. From settling for someone who thought so little of me that he believed I'd never figure it out. The January 15th hearing was anticlimactic in the best possible way. Finn's new attorney, Connor, had apparently conflicted. Out, after realizing he was drowning in family law waters. Way over his head. Negotiated a settlement before we even entered the courtroom. I got the house. Full equity, approximately $650,000. Primary custody with Finn having standard visitation every other weekend and Thursday evenings. 70% of all retirement accounts. Full reimbursement of the $312,000 in dissipated assets. Payable over 7 years because, let's be real, he was broke. Continued spousal support for 5 years, stepping down annually. Child support until both girls turned 18. Finn got his clothes, his bike, his cryptocurrency portfolio currently worth about $4,200 after the crash, and the legal bills from 4 different attorneys. Sign here, his new lawyer said, pointing to the settlement agreement with all the enthusiasm of someone who just wanted this nightmare circus to end. Finn signed. His hand was shaking. We walked out of the Travis County Family Court on a cold January afternoon, January 15th, gray skies, that particular kind of Texas winter day that makes you crave breakfast tacos and coffee, and I felt absolutely nothing toward him. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Not even pity. Just the blank neutrality you feel toward a stranger who once occupied space in your life, but is now just background noise. "Harriet!" Finn called after me in the parking lot. I turned. Jamie tensed beside me, ready to intervene, but I nodded that it was okay. "I'm sorry," Finn said, "for all of it. I know that doesn't fix anything, but—" "You're right," I interrupted. "It doesn't. But therapy might help you figure out why you blew up your entire life for what, exactly? An ego boost? Some fantasy of being a different person? The thrill of getting away with something?" He didn't have an answer. Of course he didn't. "Your daughters are incredible humans," I continued. And eventually, maybe, when you've done enough actual work on yourself, they might let you back into their lives in a meaningful way. But that's their choice to make, not yours to demand. You lost the right to demand anything from them the moment you made Eloise your accomplice. I walked to my Range Rover. Didn't look back. That chapter was closed. Signed, sealed, and filed with the Travis County clerk. By March, life had settled into a new normal that felt suspiciously like actual happiness. Eloise made honor roll at school. Julia lost her first tooth and left a note for the tooth fairy that said, "Can I have $10? Everything's expensive now." She'd been listening to me talk about inflation during grocery shopping, apparently. Sean, the teacher, and I were taking things at exactly the right pace. Dinner dates when the girls were at Barbara's, weekend hikes at McKinney Falls, movie nights where we'd watch Pixar movies with Eloise and Julia. Nothing rushed, nothing performative. Just easy. I ran into Claudine and her girlfriend Sophia one Saturday at Book People. They were browsing the art section, holding hands. "Harriet!" Claudine smiled genuinely. "How are you?" "Really good, actually. You two look happy." "We are," Claudine said, then quieter. "Thank you for not hating me forever. I know I was complicit in hurting you, even if I didn't know the full story. You gave me the evidence that won my case," I reminded her. "And you did the hard work of recognizing you'd been manipulated too. That takes real courage." After they left, Julia tugged my jacket. "That was Daddy's friend, right?" "One of them, yeah." She looks happy now. "People can do bad things and then learn and be better." 5-year-old philosophy gets me every time. Finn eventually got his life somewhat together. Not the 6-figure dream life he'd been planning, but a stable one. Decent job, modest apartment, therapy twice a month, consistent with his visitation schedule. He'd stopped trying to be someone he wasn't and started actually showing up as a present father. Progress. Not perfection. Barbara told me he'd started dating someone age-appropriate who actually knew he had kids and an ex-wife. Baby steps. Sean proposed at Hamilton Pool in June, and we're getting married next April at the Wildflower Center. Eloise is going to be a junior bridesmaid. Julia insisted on being a flower mermaid. And honestly, we're just letting her run with it. Sometimes people ask me if I'm angry about what Finn did. If I hate him for the lies, the theft, the manipulation, the 7 months of systematic betrayal. And here's the truth. I'm not grateful for what Finn did. Let's be very clear about that. He's still a selfish person who caused real damage to everyone who loved him, who hurt his daughters, who stole from me, who lied so comprehensively that it was almost impressive. But I am grateful for what I discovered about myself in the aftermath, that I'm stronger than I thought, smarter than I gave myself credit for, more capable than I believed, that I can build a beautiful life from the wreckage of someone else's betrayal, that I deserve better than someone who sees me as a resource instead of a partner. Eloise asked me recently if I was happy. We were making pancakes on a Sunday morning in our kitchen, my kitchen now. Sean was reading the Austin Chronicle at the table. Julia was singing to her collection of stuffed animals arranged in what she called audience formation. "Yeah, baby," I told her, flipping a pancake. "I really am." "Good," Eloise said seriously. "You deserve good things, Mom, out of the mouths of 8-year-olds, right? So here's my last thing, and listen closely if you're watching this and recognizing pieces of your own story. The partner who's always working late. The gut feeling you keep explaining away. The 1,000 tiny betrayals you're rationalizing because confronting them feels too scary. Trust yourself. Document everything. Get a lawyer who actually specializes in family law, not their college roommate who does corporate contracts. Build your case quietly. And remember that the best revenge isn't rage or drama or public confrontations. It's living so well that your ex's choices become their problem, not yours. It's building something better from the ashes. It's showing your kids what self-respect looks like. Finn spent 7 months planning the perfect exit, thinking he was some kind of criminal mastermind with his hidden accounts and secret apartment and carefully constructed lies. I fact-checked his entire life in 8 weeks. Turns out karma works really fast when you underestimate the woman you married. Especially when that woman gets paid to destroy competition for a living and has receipts for everything. The moral of the story? Don't knock on car windows unless you're ready for your whole life to change, or do. Sometimes the best things in life start with the worst moments. Mine certainly did.